getting back to this past Saturday, it was in Las Vegas, and it was a rematch, another heavyweight title rematch. Deontay Wilder defended his WBC title for the 10th time with a one-hitter quitter, one punch, 7th round knockout.
Behind on all cards.
Yeah. I thought he lost all 6 of the first rounds.
Yeah.
You know, the opening 6 rounds. So he totally lost the first half of the fight, but one right hand to the forehead. Luis Ortiz is out. Which sets up another rematch, Wilder versus Tyson Fury. And you talk about styles. If you're aggressive and you try to take the fight to Deontay Wilder, you're going to get your head knocked off. But Fury has kind of a negative style for such a big guy. It's an interesting rematch. I imagine most people are thinking Wilder's going to destroy Fury, just because he had him down in the first fight, and he's blasted out his last 2 opponents in frightening fashion, Dominic Breazeale and Luis Ortiz. But I still think Fury gives him hell.
Well, I think Fury is less than mediocre. I really have no respect for him. He's a great talker. You know, I'm a publicity man, so he loves to do publicity. He loves to talk to the press.
He's good at it.
He says he's entertaining. He's an entertaining interview. But as a fighter, I think he's less than average. And I just don't have any respect for him. And Wilder is not a great all-around fighter, but he has a great right hand.
Yes, he does.
He's a one-trick pony.
Right.
He's got a great right hand, and he showed that he can destroy you at any point.
Yeah.
And so I think he'll knock Fury out this time.
I think that's the prevailing wisdom. That's what people are
I'm not alone.
I'm not convinced, because I think Fury is better than just mediocre.
And also he has a style that bothers Deontay. But
yeah, he's a ring general and a defensive fighter, and unlike most of Wilder's opponents, he's actually taller than Wilder.
Right.
Has longer reach.
That's right.
And he's going to be evasive in there, and that's frustrating for a puncher. And listen, punchers, and I'll just say this because there's a lot of people saying, well, Deontay Wilder's got to be the greatest puncher in any weight class of all time. Everyone gets really excited these days, and they want to put things in a historical perspective.
I don't believe that, but he's got a great right hand.
He's the hardest punching heavyweight today. There's no doubt about it. He's the most dangerous heavyweight today, and I don't blame anybody for being super excited about Deontay Wilder, because when you've got more than 40 wins, and all but 2 of them are by knockout, and you've knocked out fighters in one-hitter quitter fashion, as he did Breazeale and Luis Ortiz just this past Saturday, he seems invincible, which is how punchers appear. When they're winning and when they're unbeaten, you can't imagine them losing until somebody goes in there and either undresses them or knocks them out, which it always happens eventually.
Yeah, before Joshua lost his fight, I liked him over Deontay.
Same.
I don't now.
Yeah, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I don't now, because I think Deontay would catch him with one of those great right hands.
Is Deontay Wilder your #1 rated heavyweight? Do you think he's the best of the bunch?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think that's pretty easy, because there aren't a lot of great heavyweights as there were during the Golden Age.
Yeah.
There's one really good heavyweight, Deontay, and Joshua, will see where he is on the rematch, and then you have a few other guys that are, as I say, less than mediocre or less than mediocre. It's not a great day for heavyweights.
Who's the greatest heavyweight puncher you've ever seen?
Well, I mean, I'm biased because I've been with George Foreman since he was 18 years old, and he won the gold when he was 19. George would be right up there. Liston, right up there.
You didn't see Joe Louis?
I would listen to Joe Louis on the radio. He was my boyhood hero.
Okay. Yeah.
And so when I rate heavyweights, I rate Joe Louis #1 of all time.
Right.
Because he was 11 and a half years, he was heavyweight champion, uninterrupted, not winning and losing. And then I have Ali #2, and I have Larry Holmes #3. Larry Holmes is a great, great fighter, but he was his own worst enemy. Absolutely his worst enemy.
And he was like the anti-Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, this perfect showman, and is gold in front of the camera, and Larry
would
not that comfortable, and man, full of piss and vinegar.
Oh, would destroy himself after a fight. Well, first of all, he followed Ali, and he was Ali's sparring partner in Zaire, and he followed Ali. And so he would say always to the writers, "You don't give me credit. You don't give me credit for, how good I can fight," and so on and so forth, and blah, 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 blah. And so he was his own worst enemy. Negative, 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 negative. Yeah. If he wouldn't have been that way, he would get the credit. And great fighter. Great fighter.
I don't think anyone will argue that Larry Holmes is like a top 5 heavyweight of all time.
Yeah.
Heavyweight punchers, where does Ernie Shavers rank?
Well, Ernie Shavers, they used to say he could knock a wall down. I mean, he was such a great puncher, and he was one of those guys that I put in the second echelon of the golden age. But this great puncher who was a favorite to beat this white kid from California who was really a small heavyweight, Jerry Quarry. They fought at Madison Square Garden, and Shavers was going to destroy him. Well, Jerry knocked out Ernie Shavers in the first round. And, Jerry was a good fighter.
Very good.
Good fighter, had a really good left hook, and that's what he used on Ernie Shavers. Ernie Shavers was a tremendous puncher. Ernie was one of those kill or be killed guys.
Yeah. And Quarry had 2 great shootouts with Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
And that, of course, Frazier's a great heavyweight puncher.
Frazier showed me how great he was when I was at the first fight, and Jerry was hitting him with those great left hooks, and Frazier just kept coming like a robot. He didn't care. He was getting hit shots by Jerry, and he wound up just walking through Jerry. I mean, that's when Frazier really, really impressed me. So, oh boy, this guy is special. And Joe was special. He was very special, but Styles is my guy. George Foreman had his number.
Yeah. And when you talk about great punchers, the quality of your opposition should count. And one thing about Foreman, he has 2 two-round knockouts over 2 guys who are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Along with him, Joe Frazier and Ken Norton.
Yeah.
So he doesn't just knock out contenders.
No.
He knocked out great fighters, fellow legends.
No.
And also has the record, he had the record for being the oldest boxing champion, and that was by knockout, a come-from-behind knockout against the young champion Michael Moorer in 1994.
A young undefeated champion who won his title from Evander Holyfield.
Okay.
A pretty darn good fighter, 4-time heavyweight champion. He should also be in the top 10 because Evander, terrific fighter. Well, Michael Moorer won the title from him, and then he fought this old 45-year-old guy, and he was winning every round, and George was just waiting and looking for his shot, and hit him with a devastating right-hand uppercut in the 10th round, and that was all she wrote.
To do that at 45, I mean, that's just...
20 years after he lost the title in Zaire. 20 years, almost to the day. That hasn't happened in sports. Forget about boxing. Where a guy's a champion in any kind of sport, and 20 years later he wins it, he regains the title. George is one of a kind.